Hey, what's up, mafias? Welcome back to the commute. In this video, I'm joined by Himanshu. Himanshu works in Nord VPN as an Android developer, and in this podcast, we'll be covering how to get hired as an Android developer. We'll be covering like how to get hired as an Android developer, KTOR. We'll be talking personal projects and releasing them in public. Maybe trying to become a founder. So there's a lot to learn here in this podcast. I hope you guys really enjoy this, and if you did, like, share, and subscribe. All as always, all of the links will be in the description below. So do check them out. For now, let's get started. I usually start off my podcast by asking a very simple question. How do you define stable life for yourself?
Uh, So stable life is actually quite complicated for me. For me, stable life means where I don't mix up my personal to my work stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's two different aspects completely. So, for example, if I'm doing something 9 to 5 as a job, that should not come around to 8 p.m. of my time unless and until it's utmost important.
Mm-hmm.
Stable life can also be for me defined as if I'm giving time to my family,
Mm-hmm.
that family time I'm not spending into work and I'm not spending this work time in my family.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping my two aspects of life completely separated and different
Mm-hmm.
describes to be a quite good enough a stable life. And regarding monetary things, I would say a basic amount which pays my bills
Mm-hmm.
and which and some amount which I can save for my future.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I look forward to. And I think for now, until now, I've been doing good. I think I don't know how to put it this way, but it's
Yeah,
still
yeah,
I would call a good life for me for now.
yeah.
But yeah, that's my stable life description if I have to put it in a separate.
That's nice. I usually ask this question simply because I try to talk to founders as well as employees, people who hire and are being hired. So they do have these two have very different perspective of their time, and
Hmm,
one values stability over money, or other value freedom over money. So
sure. Yeah.
that's why I asked this question. Um,
I don't know.
yeah,
If I have to put another thing to it, and this is completely personal view, I will not say and contradict someone else, but
yeah.
a freedom comes with money. If I have
Mhm.
to put it that way, because I could be very fancy about saying freedom, but if I cannot pay my basic bills, I cannot. How would I cover my basic things when I want a freedom? Like let's say if I want freedom, I want to go somewhere, I have to buy tickets. I need money, so money buys that freedom. So it goes both hand in hand.
Yeah, sounds perfect. Like, one more thing that I want to ask is like, have you ever thought about your journey as like exiting the employee world and going into the founding world somewhere?
Quite a few times, honestly, and I have tried once, failed, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not quite in public. But I tried once, it did not work out. But the thing is, I wanted to first understand how this actual world works,
Okay. Yeah.
how scalability works, because if I have to found something, I should have a core knowledge of a lot of things, not just development. And like let's say my domain is and not let's say my domain is Android. I cannot just come up and say that I'm building something just for Android users, but I also have to understand user perspective, user market, how a lot of scale global product works. So that's the reason I don't want it to rush again to the second product I want to build. So I'm keeping it calm, ease out and stuff like that. But yeah, that's pretty much what I want to do. And maybe in future somehow I want to go to an entrepreneurial world, but not currently.
Mm-hmm. If it's okay, can you talk about your the thing that you wanted to start?
It's not yet public domain, but it was very similar to how I wanted. Like, I think Spotify does it right now. It was a jamming session, and it just
Mm-hmm.
came out as a hobby in uh, COVID times. It was just like two friends who wanted to stream music together, watch movies together. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to build something similar to them, but at the same time, I did not think it was scalable enough because we as indie developers can go up to a scale. But at that point, Spotify was also building something similar. Now they have something called jamming sessions. So it would have never made sense to go on a full throttle and build something around it because I that was just a personal experience, and I know a lot of product comes out of personal experience, but that thing did not have a
Mm-hmm.
100% commitment from my side as well. I did not think that to grow a lot. So I did not have that confidence that it will go, and hence I dropped out of the idea after building a very niche segment of it.
Mm-hmm. I get it. Like, for my own sake, I always wanted to be a founder, and
Mhm.
being on the hiring side as well, being hired. I actually, I have a plan of my own app, but I don't think like I'll be able to compete in this large market. But what I think is, as a person coming from employee going into founding, what excites every developer is to build something, right?
Sure.
uh, the thing that differentiate, I think so, every developer wants to build something on their own and rather not just solve bugs over time. um, that's what I think, at least. Now,
Yeah, but this is two-way perspective.
mhm,
For us, people like you and me, maybe yes, but there are a lot of people who are happy in their life doing and solving bugs. It's not just bugs.
mhm,
When we start working onto a challenging problems, it also excites us.
mhm,
Maybe while building a solution like that, it might not be that exciting as how is it in the works. So it's
mhm,
a two-way thing. I think people have their own choices and liberty. Somebody
mhm.
wants us to work and get that same amount of money rather than just grinding it out completely 24 hours. So just two-way side.
Yeah, 100%, I agree. um,
Yeah,
it again raises a very like a different question here. I actually wanted to ask this thing, like, what do you think about this cramming session that we have with DSA versus development? Because development is much more exciting for me, at least. Who wants to study founders, who wants to develop something their own. I think so. Development is something I find exciting, because I think so other people might find DSA much more exciting. What do you think? What do you
sure.
find exciting, and what excites you? Yeah.
For me, I think it's not about the excitement, it's about the requirement, for example. So I will give you a very good example how to relate with this. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
companies don't require data structures to get into a company,
Mm-hmm.
right? But a lot of other companies does it, like Google, for example, they do it. But if you think about from their perspective, where people are start criticizing why data structures are important, look around from the Google perspective. Let's say somebody is in a developer relations
Mm-hmm.
and they have to, or even an engineer, for example, if they have to build something which has to be scaled up. For
Mm-hmm.
example, let's say Android engineers, it's Compose. It was built from grounds up.
Mm-hmm.
You want data structures to make a certain thing quite efficient, right? You cannot
Mm-hmm.
just start building things which is not efficient enough and you just build it, and later at the stage you start understanding that what we decided was wrong. You
Mm-hmm.
should at least had certain perspective, certain clarity of why this is needed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'll give you the example of Compose because this is tackling a lot of users. Now, Compose is just one library which is being used by, let's say, Airbnb, by us, by Spotify, any company you think in some way or the other, they're using it. So now that scales to millions of people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if somebody does not understand how data structures are, I don't think, and this could be controversial, but I don't think everybody will understand how this proficient example is working out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So hence, I think, and it's totally justified that Google wants data structures to be their core. They
Mm-hmm.
judge you on that. And because they are building a solution that is going to be used by millions, even billions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something there because they're providing other companies a solution. But let's say some other company which does not require to build solutions from grounds up, right? Any other product you think.
Mm-hmm.
Data structures needed for them maybe may not be, but that should be more of a development perspective. But
Mm-hmm.
companies building on a huge scale, I definitely think data structure should be there. Personal experience, I don't enjoy data structures,
Mm-hmm.
but do I hate it? I would not say no because uh, at some point or the other, you know the necessity after working on a huge scale that why data structures are important,
Mm-hmm.
rather than just when I was initial ages, when I was building in startups and stuff, I did not like data structures, and I was a very like a good advocate of saying that data structure should not be needed, should not
Mm-hmm.
be the only judging criteria. And I still stand by that point that data structure should not be the only judging criteria,
Mm-hmm.
but it should one of them definitely.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I tend to agree, because I think like most of the, let's take an example. I think so. Are you aware of Zomato, right, in India? Yeah. So
Sure.
like Zomato is much more of a utility app. They don't require building something like an algorithm from ground up. So I think so DSA is not required there. But with Google, they're actually building whole libraries. So 100%. I think so. If you can optimize your libraries that actually build these utility apps and are giving other developers a functionality to, you know, earn and serve millions. So I think so. Yeah, DSA is valid there. Um,
Even if you think about Zomato, and I'm not saying that they don't need it, because
mhm,
let's say now seeing the scale they are tackling, the restaurants they are handling,
mhm,
each, let's say they have 1,000 restaurants, and each 1,000 restaurants have 100 items. It's
mhm,
just huge as a scale. So now if you have to search, you need an algorithm to search
mhm,
it out.
mhm,
Like in Android, if you see, they customize, give you solutions out of the box that you can
mhm,
utilize for the search.
mhm,
But consider the same thing on the backend side. They
mhm,
have a huge data set. Now they have to filter it by n number of things. That
mhm,
has to be efficient, and a lot of items would be, a lot of users would be hitting that APIs or the search thing.
mhm.
So I think that is needed, but again, that's not the only thing Zomato should be judging on, I think. And that's, again, not speaking on someone's behalf, it's just a personal feeling.
100%. I think so. It's overall how we tend to figure out ki who is a good developer and who is not. But
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
yeah, it's a essential filter. It's a necessary evil. That's what we can say. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Uh,
cannot just ignore that and be the one of the good engineers. I would say that, because at some point in your life you would need a necessity of why you should know a data structure thing.
100%. I agree. I agree. One more question regarding like let's draw a tangent here and go on. Like you talked about backend as such. Have you tried experimenting with backend or some other technology other than Android?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I did backend quite a lot of times on Golang.
Mm-hmm.
I have done in Kotlin, Ktor, and Spring Boot.
Mm-hmm.
So I have dwelled into multiple domains. I
Mm-hmm.
have yet to try iOS, I would say, but front end in
Mm-hmm.
React. I have done the backend in Go and Kotlin, but it was all need to know basis. Whenever I had a project which I wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
so when I worked in Mumbai, I needed to work on Golang. I learned it. I did it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I was doing that person project which I told you. So I was familiar with Kotlin. So I picked up a Ktor and then I moved to Spring Boot. React.js was also for that. But yeah, on basic fundamentals, I think I have, but it's just need to know basis. Whenever I need to work on something, I'll do it.
Yeah, 100%. I think so. I kind of wanted to develop my own backend as for the app that I was talking about, and I tried learning some of the Ktor. I haven't applied it as such, but I think so. Ktor as a backend and whole Kotlin stack excites me because I think so. One language for everything is something that I love. Um, ha-
Yeah.
have you tried developing websites with Kotlin or maybe KMP and stuff?
I have tried, but unsuccessful because I did not give a lot of time. This year I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to experiment, but this year a lot of personal stuff was going around. So I
Mm-hmm.
did not want to put time into this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm holding that for the next year. But I tried KMM,
Mm-hmm.
and that was good enough. And I'm migrating a couple of my libraries to that. But again, it is taking a bit of my time. So not doing a lot.
100%, 100%. Like, if somebody is out there, right, listening to this and he wants to, as I think Android as such has a very huge, gate, a pit stop that you need to require before getting into in this field, like XML, Java, Kotlin, KMM, KMP, like
Sure.
Ktor. There's so many things to learn in Kotlin nowadays. It's much less as compared to web development, but there's so many things to learn. Is there any piece of advice you want to give someone who wants to just start in Android?
I would just say, keep experimenting with whatever you see, because you could, let's say, take any course. And I am not against courses, but the
Mm-hmm.
course is based on the perspective of the teacher or the instructor who is there.
Mm-hmm.
I would always say, whenever, not just Android per se, but any domain you experiment and or you move into, you
Mm-hmm.
should keep experimenting, keep building, and just keep grinding around. Like, for example, when I learned, I was very much curious to build the Tinder swipe thing. It was very
Mm-hmm.
interesting for me,
Mm-hmm.
and that got me into learning a lot of different stuff. In the similar way, it's just that see a good app which you feel you
Mm-hmm.
use a lot, WhatsApp for
Mm-hmm.
example, see how it can be built. Then you see around that how you can make it more performant, see around how you can push it to the publications or the developer consoles.
Mm-hmm.
So a step at a time, and then you start figuring out what could be done better.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have done this, why not this? And you start questioning and challenging yourself with different other aspects.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter if you're doing Android, iOS, backend, anything, just think around what you want to build or what you have been using a lot, and just take that opportunity to build something, and that should be a better starting point. I did not know at that point when I started, so I was following a lot of courses and theories. But now, if I have to start back again, this is going to be my pathway. And let's say if I'm building something, let's say for example list, you can
Mhm.
just Google it out, that yeah, I want to build this, how would I
Mhm.
do it? And
Mhm.
there would be a lot of thousands of solution tutorials telling you that how to do it. So just
Mhm.
use this and now read about it, why using this was a good option, why using this was a good option, and
Mhm.
what do I learn out of it.
Mhm.
So if you're doing it, just following this would make you a good prospective engineer and understand how and why things are being happening there.
Yeah, I agree. Like, if you're just building for the sake of building it, and if you just, even if you're, that's what I think at least, even if I'm in my job and subconsciously I'm just doing chat GPT and answering everything, and just copying some of the code, editing it a bit and trying to optimize it in a certain way. If I'm not understanding whatever I'm doing, why am I doing it,
Yeah,
I'll necessarily fail. So it's just something that we as developers need to learn, that we need to know why we are deploying whatever we are deploying. So that's a necessary
definitely. Yeah.
part. That's a necessary part. Yeah. What do you think about? I think you talked about your own libraries, right? Are there any libraries that we can know about and we can learn from those libraries as such?
So I created quite a few libraries since a couple of years, but three of the libraries which are active on GitHub are Calendar one. It was built completely using Jetpack Compose.
Mm-hmm.
Another was a chart library called Charty.
Mm-hmm.
So it was also composed.
Mm-hmm.
These two are in active development, but I have not committed for the last couple of months, again because of the personal errands. But I'm planning to migrate them by the end of the year to KMN.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a image picker library called Pluck.
Mm-hmm.
So these three libraries are there on GitHub, which are there, I think, 800 plus stars of each of them.
Mm-hmm.
So they are a good segment where I started building libraries, understanding data structures, and now
Mm-hmm.
since it got a bit of traction, I want to optimize it and make it a better solution out of it. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
these three one I would recommend. There are a lot of different repositories on my GitHub, but these three have better code, and don't judge me for the older ones.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we as lovers, I especially I do not have that much experience as you do, so I always try to look up the GitHub libraries as such and try to understand how they code it, because making something an open source and a lot of people are using it, it requires a very good knowledge and deep understanding of code you're writing. So I always tend to look at how libraries work, because they seems first of all complex, super interesting, and it's a very good code quality. So yeah, you can learn a lot from these libraries. I'll try to link them down,
Sure.
and I'll try to check them myself as well. So
Yeah, thank you so much.
yeah. One more thing, like, as of now, like, first of all, I want to know your experience, like, going from college, like, going from college, starting out first Android developer or maybe somewhere else. How did you get started from college? What was your journey? That's what I want to know.
Okay, so I was studying in Pune University. There was this college based out of Lonavala. So
Mm-hmm.
what happened? There were a few issues in the college, and we had, I think, a lockout. I would say not lockout. It was a strike of teachers and a lot of issues.
Mm-hmm.
So that got me some free time, and I started experimenting with Android.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not just Android. There was this, I think, Google bootcamp called Applied CS,
Mm-hmm.
which was later converted to as DSCs.
Mm-hmm.
So I was into the one of the programs, and there we were done and introduced to Android, why we should do it, and that was something very interesting to learn.
Mm-hmm.
That got me into Android as such, and there were a few people whom I was following with, and it just got me curious of how you can just use code to build a certain app. And since using a phone, it was always fascinating for me to see this apps being used, but I don't know how to do it. So I was learning it, and I got interested on a video, I think, or something, where I saw a Tinder swipe, and that was
Mm-hmm.
very interesting for me. Like, I never saw something like that, and getting that swipe thing to learn was very interesting. And then that got me really into Android, and I started learning Android, and not learning, but I would say how was that built and seeing tutorials and stuff. And then there was Udemy course I took. I started learning that, but that was for a failure for me. Then knowing a lot of basic stuff, I applied for an internship and that worked out. It was based in Pune. We worked around. There was a senior to me, and he was also my college senior, and he helped me a lot understand a lot of things. He was a very good is, I would not say was, he is a very good engineer,
Mhm.
and he helped me a lot in my college days. He helped me understand why things are working, why things are not working,
Mhm.
and that helped me to at least have a basic level of confidence in myself that I could do something.
Yeah.
And after that, there was a very early stage startup. They reached out to me, and all of this happened because I used to, push a lot of bad code or whatever I used to build on GitHub. So GitHub was like my digital resume at one point.
Mhm.
And a startup from Delhi reached out to me that they're building something very interesting, and it was a health company and stuff. If I would be interested in working with them,
Mhm.
so I worked with them, and it was a good experience. I worked for like 1.5 years as an
Mhm.
intern, and I was the one of the only Android engineers there, and that helped me understand a lot of aspects, API and stuff. And
Mhm.
before that, there was a very small internship intent for 2 months
Mhm.
in a company based in Bangalore. So there I met two people. They were really
Mhm.
interesting and very helpful, honestly, and they taught me how things work.
Mhm.
And one of them right now works at Meta, and one of them works at PhonePe. So they were, I would say, like my mentors. Like if you have any doubts, reach out to them. And it was not like hand handling things that how could this be done, how could this be done. They used to assign me tasks and told me that figure this out how you can do it.
Mhm.
No help, nothing, unless and until I spent a good quality of time and still not understand it, they will explain it to me. But before that, it was just all me experimenting, exploring, going places and Google and stuff and just learn about it. So that was like my real world project example where I started building for products for people. And then when I switched to this Delhi startup as an intern, it was a good one because we were building from zero, and everything being built, you could see a life cycle process, a product process, how things iterate, what changes comes around, and a lot of things. So that happened. I
Mhm.
understand a lot of basic canvas and stuff, mathematical solutions, why we needed it. So that was a good challenging point, and that's what actually got me to Android. And by the time I graduated, I was never a fresher. I had an actual experience of building in public. So then
Mhm.
I could switch to other startups and start working with them. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's how everything got me into it. And
Mhm.
obviously, having an Android device was always a motivation that you could build something and use of your own.
Yeah, 100%. I think so. It's every Android developer have talked to. It's just in their innate curiosity to build something for their own, and they have an Android device, and it just feels amazing to see something that you built running on that, and
Yeah,
it excites them particularly because I think so. If other people are using your thing, whatever it is, some kind of app, it just gives a very good spark to any Android developer out there. And I think so. Same
yeah.
goes for iOS as well. But I do
The
not
reason
know.
I could not, the reason I could not go iOS because I could not afford a MacBook and an iPhone.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a
I think
limitation for people getting starting up.
Yeah, 100%. I think so. That's the case for most of the developers who are Android because people want to explore iOS, people want to explore Android as well because they are in a very
Yeah,
similar lines, but because of the financial terms, especially in India, we tend not to do that. So
makes
yeah,
sense. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
100%. What's your thinking about like Android as such in the future perspective? Like I've seen a lot of web being talked in on YouTube as such, and they're talking about like websites, SaaS, and stuff, and not a lot of people are talking about apps. Does it mean that apps are going somewhere, or something is happening? Is something around the corner that might kill apps? What do you think about Android as such?
I don't know. This is a very personal thought, and me talking about Android or apps or web is just being a bit biased because you cannot just come up to a conclusion of saying this that this will exist, this will not, this will
Mhm,
happen, this will not. Nobody has predicted future,
mhm,
right? Like at one point, everybody was like going to PWAs, and it's still there, and everybody
mhm,
said PWAs will kill applications,
mhm,
but it's still there, right? So I don't think anybody anything is going to get killed
mhm,
because if you see an Android, and everybody has a phone right now,
mhm,
and you don't know use web WhatsApp on your phone. You use a WhatsApp
Mm-hmm.
or anything else. A lot of things, like for example, us Nord VPN, we cannot work out of a website. We need an app to be there installed in your phone.
Mm-hmm.
So my 2 cents to this would be both platforms or both ecosystem of application versus website is going to coexist.
Mm-hmm.
And people who speak about this is going to die, this is not going to die, this is just their personal experiences and based on personal bias.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I think both are going to coexist in the same domain, and you would be surprised maybe that it should exist in next 10 years too, because
Mm-hmm.
everything evolves. Because a year back, nobody thought about ChatGPT being this famous. Everybody was
Mm-hmm.
Googling. It
Mm-hmm.
evolved. Maybe there would be an evolved version of app engineering or web engineering, but there is going to be an existence for sure. And that's
Mm-hmm.
a feeling I have. But you never know, down the line of a couple of years, something might change. But I feel that that's going to happen.
100%. The thing that I usually think about is, like, even if I assume that there's something around the corner that might kill apps as such, and the mobiles are gonna die, I think that would be VR maybe, but we still need apps for VR. So
Sure, yeah.
yeah, anything we are building for these VRs. So that might be the future. Might be AR. We don't know. But the thing is, apps will be around, and so will be web technology, and a lot of things. We still need backend for everything, so that's there. And yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm never sure of this comparison. People do,
Mm-hmm.
sure, but it's just a comparison. I think whatever you're comfortable with, just build it.
100%. Whatever drives your curiosity, just do it.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
100%. Like
And let's say, for example, you never graduate as a web engineer or Android engineer. You just graduate as an engineer. So
mhm,
knowing both the worlds is not a harmful thing for you. Maybe just learn both the technologies, have your curiosity, have some experiences. That's it.
mhm, mhm. 100%. What do you think about, like, let's just say a situation there that you're about to switch to a different field, or maybe you're switched to a new job, and if you were to start from zero, right? You're just going into interview preparation mode, and you want to start somewhere. Is there any advice for someone who is looking for a switch, or maybe starting off career from zero?
Yeah, sure. If I have to look for a new job or something else, I would start preferring first shortlisting the companies I want to work at.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a lot of different aspects of why I would be shortlisting that company. It could be salary, it could be the technology, it could be someone I know who works in that team, somebody recommended. So it could be a lot of different things, but I would start shortlisting it. Then I would design my resume curated to that specific company. So, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I might have worked on 10,000 of things in my previous company or my experience, but if the new company needs Jetpack Compose, I will cater my resume around Jetpack Compose,
Mm-hmm.
showing my skill set that they want. Second, I would research a bit of what kind of interviews they held, right? If obviously shortlisted, but for example, they ask data structures or no, they ask this kind of questions, how what type of interviews are there, and then you would obviously have a call with engineering and engineers
Mm-hmm.
or the HRs. So you understand a perspective of what they're expecting, and if your expectations align, if you think that it's a good firm you want to work with, and if your salary expectations also align, then I have this whole flow charted out that let's say there are three different rounds. I
Mm-hmm.
prepare for each and every round individually.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say first round would be a take home assignment, or it could be a live coding round.
Mm-hmm.
So on the first round, the HR round, where it would be, I would be having all my questions cleared. How what kind of live coding it could be, how many days I would I have for a take home assignment, what are the expectations and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then, when you have, or let's say any kind of a project which you have to code, I will always make sure, no matter if it's a take home or let's say if I have to live code for 5 6 hours, I'll at least add some test cases. Some
Mm-hmm.
test cases definitely, because
Mm-hmm.
I would like to make sure that my logics, whichever I'm implemented, are testable. Because whenever you go to a production level code, you would expect the company to have some sort of test cases. So you should always want to align yourself to the company rather than thinking that the company should align to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And let's say if that company does not do test cases, and if you integrating test cases always increases the chance that how you're building it. And let's say any home assignment, take home assignment should be always catered to a point that it is some sort of descriptive in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Then when you have other rounds of interview, then you mentally prepare, you search, research. And I always make this as a point that I research a lot of places, Glassdoor or other places, where people describe how their interview experiences went, what they want to as a hire, or however successful hires. You get a perspective and you plan your interview around that. And that perspective is very important because, whenever you start preparing for an interview, you should align towards the company if you want to work for,
Mhm.
because it's very rarely going to happen that the company is going to align towards you.
Mhm.
So always make sure that you plan towards it and take some time out. Do not rush, because
Mhm.
let's say in this current situation, a lot of people have been laid off. A lot of people have lost their jobs. People
Mhm.
start rushing towards it. I would say take some time, understand what's expected, and then plan your interview. Then move your target goals towards that, and that's how you're going to succeed. That's something I would follow if I have to look out for a job again.
Mhm. I agree. Like I tend to I have made some mistakes around here, especially because what I tend to do was I would just instead of shortlisting every company that I want to work in, I would just start randomly applying, not you know making my resume a very pinpoint needle for every HR out there. So I would just randomly apply and without understanding how my resume actually caters to the company's needs. And I would think that why is my resume not getting shortlisted? It's because you have done something wrong there. So
Yeah,
I think it's much more job search as requires much more time. I would describe it as a metaphor of dating a girl because yeah, I think that particularly you first have a small talk and then you try to go on a first date
figure things
and
out.
figure
Yeah.
things out. You need to know how and what she likes before doing anything else. So yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
because you know what, looking for a job is not just that the company evaluates you. You as a person also evaluates the company.
100%.
That how is the culture? Do you want to work it? And one of the things I have seen in taking a lot of interviews is people try to, how do I put it? People try to justify something which they are not,
Hmm.
right? And they want to make sure that they get selected. But it's totally okay that if you be just yourself, and you should ask thousands of questions. That's one thing I always make sure to tell people, that whenever you interview, when end of the round, when people say, do you have any questions, make sure you have questions, and
Hmm.
not just ask random things. Like I have seen people asking, oh, so you use this technology, do you use this? That a lot of stuff could be figured out online or just in a random conversation. You should always ask about how the team works, how the team functionality is, how is the work life balance, and something, because
Hmm.
that gives a perspective of the person who is interviewing you.
Hmm.
Because that helps you understand, align your goals. For example, I would not like to work in a company which makes me work on the weekends.
Hmm.
So that would be a question I always ask. I would not like to work in a company which makes me work till 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. at the night.
Hmm.
That's something I'll not ask. So these are the smaller questions. You need to make sure that you as a person are aligned to the conversation of the company and the expectations as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's a good stuff to get started with.
100%. I think that personally, it's like something that companies themselves should understand in a way that if they are, especially in India, because they tend to think employees as just rather than an asset, but rather as a liability. And they tend to figure that giving them, I don't know, like less compensation, more working hours, and stuff like that. I'm not saying every company does that, but many of them do. And
Yeah,
instead of thinking these people as assets, they think them as liability. And what turns out is people just suddenly leaving the company without they're not caring about the product at all. You're not establishing a very good culture out there. So that goes for every company out there. So if you're interviewing for some company that you want to work in, you need to first understand that how was the experience of the people who are alumni of that company. Why
yeah.
do
I was interviewed in a company before moving to Germany, based in India. They bluntly said me that they expect me to work on Saturdays and Sundays since I'm single
Mhm.
and I don't have a family at that point. So I just said no, because that's something I cannot align myself with. But they expect people to do, and there are people who will do it, and that's fine for me. But as an individual, I don't like to work on weekends.
Each have their own poison, but yeah,
Sure.
um, it's just we need to understand what's our boundaries are and actually draw it from the starting to land a good job that does not suffocate us but rather allows us to grow in a much more um,
Yeah.
exponential pattern. That's what I think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely on point.
What do you think about like, have you taken interviews as such in your company or somewhere else?
Not in this one. I don't prefer to, but other forms, yes, I have.
What are you looking at when you're hiring someone?
It depends, honestly. Depends on the role. Depends on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say if I say a senior, I would expect how they lead the interview because that's something expected. But if it's a mid-level engineer or a low-level engineer, it's expected how you dwell into a conversation type of an interview. So my type of an interview is not shooting around 100 questions at once. I like to have a conversation around their experiences
Mm-hmm.
because there are thousands of things you can do in Android,
Mm-hmm.
but judging on that thousand thing would not be the right perspective. That's according to me. I judge a person based on what they have been working on, what they have built, and we start around that conversation that what you have built, how do you do this, how do you think we should do this, and if you have to do this, how you go around and figure out a solution. And that that gives you a perspective of the person's thinking, that how do
Mm-hmm.
they think, if given it a situation, how would they handle it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just a perspective which I want to understand, and obviously the answers, but how do they think is more important for me, and that's something which I tend to evaluate.
I think I haven't interviewed anyone as such, but what I think is that after talking to a small group of people who are hiring at this, I have seen that they tend to look at their innate curiosity to actually learn. Firstly, and secondly, they actually try to understand how a person looks at the code, because if they are looking at the code like, oh yeah, it's just code, I will do it and go home, I don't care about this code as such. If they had this kind of mentality, I don't think so they will have someone who drives to actually makes their product better. um
I think I have a contradictory answer to that. So, for example, code. Let's say a person working 5 years in a company, his mindset would be very tackled towards that 5 years where he has worked.
mhm,
But that might not be the right perspective of judging him because that's the culture, that's the inference he has got by the
mhm,
people working with. So, saying that he looks to a code, my
mhm,
my perspective towards that is if I have to interview right now someone, I would see, I will give him a use case. Let's say if he tells me that he has built an API,
mhm,
how did he make sure that it was a good one? How did you tackle that situation? How did you handle certain interceptors or something like that?
mhm,
So I don't tend to see how do you drive it as per se. Like I obviously want him to drive that interview, but I tend to see, does he understand the minutes of what should be done?
mhm,
Because let's say somebody who comes to my team as someone who has been working there is also their responsibility to make sure they're comfortable enough to understand the code. They should be
mhm,
comfortable enough to own that code. And
mhm,
when people start owning a code, owning a segment that, yeah, this works fine and this is like something they should be working at, at that point, this person will drive a code in a much better place.
mhm,
And you cannot expect everything at day one because people have to ease out into the code, ease out in the company, ease out into a lot of different aspects.
mhm,
So if I tell you that you're expected to ship the code on the first day, it's wrong. I
mhm,
expect people to ease out because when they start feeling comfortable around the people, around the code, around the tasks they are doing, that is when the people shine the most.
mhm,
That is when they give the best, rather than expecting in an interview that you would be doing 100% pitch perfect thing, you would be driving everything, because now you are creating an unnecessarily a very false expectation of the other person, because each person
mhm,
is different.
mhm,
Someone working 20 hours and making sure because that's their life, but expecting this the other person will do it as well, now that's a false expectations right from the start go. So
mhm,
give the person some time to understand what they really want to do.
mhm. I agree. I agree. It's just different people have their different goals
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
towards their codes. And another point that you brought up is, I think so, that how vigilant they are for their small stuff. So yeah, vigilance
Yes.
is the prize of being successful. So um
You can be successful in a lot of different ways, not just working 100% hard. It's just that how minutely you see things. Let's say if I'm just adding an animation, am I
mhm,
paying an utmost eye to how good would it be as a user? Because as an engineer, what we start doing is we start our thinking process around an engineer.
mhm,
But on a longer goal, it should be more around, push it towards the user. How as a user would you like it?
mhm,
Would you want this to be happening, right? So that's a thinking which I have, and this is a thinking I want to move on with, and that's again my personal feeling, but I genuinely like that to happen in that certain way.
I agree, I tend to agree. Like, how's your, if I can ask, how's your culture in NordVPN, and how is there?
Okay, if I have to summarize it, and that's not because I work here, but
Yeah.
on 1st of November, I completed 2 years here,
Mhm,
and it does not feel like I completed 2 years because there are a lot of things to learn, a very nice team to work with. I get to ask, I get to learn. And if I don't feel I have completed 2 years here, it's an actual good thing because I still keep
mhm,
learning and something every day, something new pops up. So
mhm.
it makes that life interesting here.
100%.
and
That's
and it's
that's
an as it's a product which is very new for me. It's a very niche domain of
mhm,
VPN technology, so it's fun.
mhm. Congratulations for 2 years.
Thank you.
Other than that, like, I would ask, like, what does it go in to actually run a VPN based app? What kind of things are you using in the backend? If I can ask,
I
in
don't know. I cannot speak about backend because I don't interact much with it. My core area of expertise goes around Android. So a lot of things actually goes to a VPN side. We have to handle technology, what VPN stuff we work around. I cannot just speak about that openly, but
100%.
it's just a product. If it's a basic Android app, I would say we build everywhere. But here, you have to understand protocols. You have to understand a lot of different stuff, which in a day-to-day Android engineering life we don't feel about knowing it because it's not necessary. Because 80, 85, 90% of the apps just go around, making an API call, displaying in a
Mm,
list, doing stuff. Here, a lot of actual interesting stuff goes around that does not just tackle towards an internet call. It has, I don't know, I would put it more engineering crux like protocols, like what VPN actually is, how does it work into an Android deep level AOSP side. So it's a learning curve, I would say, and I'm still not there yet. So I'm not the right person because it just feels every day is something new.
mhm.
So yeah, 2 years, it's still new and still a learning phase going on for me here.
Yeah, that seems
But I'm
interesting.
but I'm happy. Yeah, but I'm happy that I chose this because that gives me a whole different perspective about Android. This is just not about the Jetpack libraries. This is not just about stuff we do. Like being one of the pioneers in VPN,
Mhm,
we have to make sure that we handle each and every users. We have to make sure the app is performant. We have to make sure the animations are smooth enough, how things would be tackled towards user side. So a
mhm,
lot of different perspective I've seen here, which makes like the engineering life very interesting.
mhm. 100%. I think that a much more knowledge of the network and how networking works in Android is required if you're working in a VPN based company, and
Sure.
how Android apps actually interact with different settings wirelessly wired. Maybe we're talking, we need to understand all of these libraries slash technologies of how.
And one of the good things about being in this team is
Mhm,
if your team is helpful enough, you would learn not just about the product, but a lot of different perspective, different ideas, because
mhm,
there are people who have been working here for 5, 6 years. So
mhm,
learning from them is always fun. And it's not
mhm,
something, I shy about because that's something I ask a lot of questions and
mhm,
they are very helpful enough to just answer it easily. They don't like, and I don't think I'm being judged because I'm
mhm,
being asking questions till now
mhm.
after being 2 years. So I'm happy that this is an actual culture here that I
Mhm.
feel safe enough to ask a lot of questions.
Mhm. I agree. I think if your seniors are not answering questions in any company, I think so it just reflects of how they handle their products themselves, because they will tend to overpower the customer feedback, because they will think themselves as they are right over the customer. So the products tend to fail because of that. But yeah, if
It's not
the
just that, but here as well, this is one of the good things as well. Here you can pitch ideas. It's not just
Mhm.
that somebody from the senior level or some product owners will. Here you can actually pitch ideas that this is something we would like to experiment. This is like something like
Mhm.
we would to do, and more or less we get to do stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
It might not make it to the production, but still
Mhm.
we get to experiment stuff. So it's a good thing.
Um, like, what's your interaction with the product manager there? Like, how is, like, I was actually asking because um VPN is not something that I think so a lot of Indians pay for, right? We tend to use it
You would be
really
surprised.
well.
People do
Okay.
pay for it.
Okay, I do not have that knowledge of how market is working out right now. I
Not
tend
just
to
Nord
think.
VPN, but I know this data is, I'm saying because I know like a lot of people actually pay for it because a lot of people are
Mhm.
friends of mine. And I
Mhm.
was surprised when I posted on Twitter that I'm joining Nord VPN. I got a lot of messages saying that, oh, we are a user, we are a user. So it tends to show me that I saw a lot of people using it. And once you start working in a company, you see a lot of people using that product until you
Yeah.
were joining that firm. So yeah, I know more people I expected,
Okay,
more than I
I
expected.
wasn't aware of how many people are actually using VPN as such, because I tend to agree like Zomato is something that people would pay for. Of course, it's food. It's something a very good utility. Make my trip maybe. VPN seems a very far fetched for Indian market, but yeah, I'm not well aware and about this marketplace. Yeah, have you
Mhm.
tried like talking to the product manager, and how is um, like NordVPN expanding their market as such? Are they moving out of not just like, are they, is there one singular product called VPN? Are they going out somewhere or doing something else in like B2B or
So we
something?
we we in the Nord product, we have a couple of products in the portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just Nord VPN. We have Nord Locker, we have Nord Pass, we have I think Saley as an eSIM solution. So Nord Security has a lot of different products.
Mm-hmm.
And regarding the product owners, I would say we have like a product owner dedicated to each team.
Mm-hmm.
So our team has our own dedicated product engineers, and we tend to talk about the domain we working around.
Mm-hmm.
So, but here the discussion actually goes two ways. So it's not just product owner telling us what should we be doing, what is to be done, but here we pitch ideas to the product owners. This is something we bring, and this is always, a sign of a healthy discussion how it should be, because
100%.
we always keep throwing ideas. And even if we groom some tickets in the Jira, we always make sure that points are heard. Whatever we have a feeling, whatever we think around, we always make sure it's to be heard. We speak out, we have a discussion. And
Mm-hmm.
having a healthy discussion in a team just makes life easy for the product owners, for the engineers, for the leads everywhere. So it's a good thing, I would say.
100%. I wasn't aware that Nord has a lot of different products. I was just aware of the VPN. But yeah, that was the thing that I wanted to ask. Like, a lot of product managers do not prefer to discuss new ideas. So that's something, that's what I always look for in companies, because I tend to give very different, exciting ideas. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
because
something of a
because
bonus.
I'm glad to work with good product owners in our team,
Mm-hmm.
and really it has been a good delight because it's not always where ideas come from them.
Mm-hmm.
You pitch ideas, and every idea is considered, as I said. So no,
Mm-hmm.
it might not make to the production, but
Mm-hmm.
we get to at least discuss pros and cons of why it should be there, why it should not be there, and that kind of makes life easy and interesting in the same point because you have your voice heard, and that's very important for us.
100%. Um, by the way, if I can ask, like, what do you think about someone releasing their own app as such? Because I tend to think that working on app, releasing features is a very different skill set than actually making an app from scratch and releasing it. What do you think?
So
Like, can you give some advice to someone who wants to release an app, or should one release an app? by themselves own? Like, what do you think?
I don't know. It depends on the idea. It depends on what you want to do. Because when I started, I shipped anything and everything because I built. But
Mm-hmm.
it all depends, no, of how you want to be it. Like for
Mm-hmm.
example, do you want this product to be shaped around users paying for it? Do you want this product just as an experimental hobby project? So if you want to make a project out of it, you want to pay money for it, sure, go ahead. If you don't, just move on.
Mm-hmm.
So my idea and perspective is, what are you trying to achieve is
Mm-hmm.
what you should target for. Because if you want money, you should be focusing more on how you can get money, the services you provide. But building features, building that is also interesting for people. For me, it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot give a wholesome answer to this. I just feel that whatever is the target goal for that individual or as a company,
Mm-hmm.
they should be focusing towards it. So I'm not sure what can I give as an idea to it.
Yeah, like you have released, you tried starting your own startup. If you have any one single piece of advice that you want to give someone who's just thinking
Ship
of
as a
starting their own.
I I think ship as early as possible, because
Mm-hmm.
you can always reiterate on whatever you want to try to build, but
Mm-hmm.
always ship as fast as possible to make sure you can understand the market fit. Because
Mm-hmm.
in your brain, all the ideas have a market fit, but do you
Mm-hmm.
actually know that users want that as a product?
Mm-hmm.
So ship as fast as possible. Try to get to certain users, talk to people. You would be surprised to talk to your friends, because let's say your friends might be the person who will actually give you clarity.
Mm-hmm.
But as a owner, as a product founder, I would say always be open to hearing options, hearing solutions, hearing ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Because for us, whatever we build, it's just like a baby for us. So we would
Mm-hmm.
think each and everything is perfect. But looking from third perspective or someone else's perspective, you might be surprised of what things could turn out to be.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you are focusing something which is very new. You're focusing something which is, I don't know. Everybody chimes in. So ship
Mm-hmm.
as early as possible. Converse with a lot of people. Think what they think about your product. Do you think it's a market fit? Do you think it should be good enough? And if all of these start shaping around, keep iterating to your product and make it useful for the people. That's a
100%.
mistake I did.
Yeah, we tend to think that for anyone who's founder out there, I think that just deliver the minimum lovable product. That's what I think about
Yes. Yeah.
any app out there. Yeah, have
Yeah.
you?
That's the MVP, I think.
Yeah, I tend to think like minimum instead of minimum viable product. I think the minimum lovable product. Um,
Yeah. Sure.
have you tried like other libraries like Flutter, React Native, and stuff for yourselves?
Yeah, yeah, I've tried Flutter, React Native in a very, very initial stage. I don't even remember. It was 17, 18, 19, I don't know. But somewhere there, but Flutter, yes. I've experimented, sure.
What do you think? Like, what would you prefer, or are there any perspective you want to give on Flutter
I
versus
don't know.
Kotlin?
I don't know. There is a whole war going on social media saying Flutter versus Android, Flutter versus this, that. I just have a perspective, which a very good friend of mine, he works at Tinder
Mm-hmm.
right now, and he gave me a very good example, which I always relate and give this to people.
Mm-hmm.
There was Ionic, there was Xamarin, there was
Capacitor.
a lot of different of cross-platform apps,
Yeah.
and everything was a native killer.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have Flutter. People tend to say it will kill this, it will do that. But I have this belief that if there is native, there is Flutter. Because ultimately, what you're doing is you're building for the native, right? There is an
Yeah.
ecosystem for that. And there might be a lot of frameworks that might come and go, but native is going to stand because you still need their libraries, you still need their
Mm-hmm.
APIs
Mm-hmm.
to work around.
Yeah.
Flutter is an actual good solution. I would never deny that.
Mm-hmm.
But saying a certain framework will kill a certain other thing is
Mm-hmm.
just too big of a statement to say, I would say. Because
Mm-hmm.
whatever I know, for example, I know native quite well enough, so I would go always native. But
Mm-hmm.
somebody who knows Flutter, ultimately he will go with Flutter.
Mm-hmm.
And now, putting things in perspective, as a user, does anybody know that is it Flutter or native?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever solves the solution for the user, go with it. Be it React Native, be it
Mm-hmm.
anything else,
Mm-hmm.
go. you would be surprised. I don't know if you know, but Golang can also be used to build mobile apps,
Mhm.
right? So whatever solves the solution for your users, go with it. You don't have to dwell around that. Do I need native? Do I need Flutter? There's a whole war going on social media that this is the best, this is the best. For me, whatever solves the solution for the user, whatever they feel comfortable in, whatever provides a good user experience, that is
Mhm.
the best. So if your engineers, if your team knows Flutter, go with it. It's a very good thing to do.
100%. User comes first over anything else. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Technologies can come and go, but user will always stay. That is the one they are paying the salaries for. So I
100%.
don't know. That's a perspective I have. People might disagree, but this is what I stand with.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, these were all the questions that I have from my side. If you have anything you want to add before we part away, it would be great.
I actually don't have anything to say around. It's just
Mhm.
that it was nice having conversations around practical world, to be honest, because at times people just have this library promotion and stuff, but it's nice to have these conversations once in a while because I don't know people actually see this or not, but when I was starting up, I was seeing people's perspective, how they started, how they did their engineering, how they moved on into their careers, how what are they doing now.
Mhm.
So it's always nice to hear kind of things. So kudos for you to doing this.
Mhm.
It's actually fun.
Yeah, I tend to think that understanding from people around you is much better than trying to solve your problem on your own, because your brain is the one that got you in that problem. So
Sure, yeah.
I tend to think that if I talk to a lot of people, understand it, a lot of different perspective, I will eventually will arrive to the right solution. That's what I think,
Yeah.
and
Makes sense. Yes, yes. I
uh,
totally agree.
yeah, that's why I try to do this. Other than that, yeah, thank you for joining, and yeah.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you so much.
Hello, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, of course, like, share, and subscribe. For now, this is it, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.